Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you all for being here today. You know, e-cigarette products have been in use at least since the early 2000s, I believe. And I know we can all agree that the youth vaping epidemic is a serious problem. But if you look at, this has been a recent development, so you have to stop and ask yourself, if the products have been out there for that long, you have to ask yourself, why is this a recent occurrence? I say recent, within the last few years. E-cigarettes were developed as an alternative to tobacco products. Tobacco products which can contain tar and other things that are damaging to the body. But you also have to ask yourself, if e-cigarette products are used in Europe and other places in the world, why they aren't seeing the uptick in health-related problems that we're seeing and the deaths that we're seeing here in the United States. These are rhetorical questions that we have to ask ourselves. And I want to reference, Madam Chair, a Politico article dated October of 2019 and submit it for the record.
Without objection.
In that article, it also references that the Trump administration is urging people to avoid buying unregulated vape products. And I think we can point to the unregulated vape products, the black market products, and the tampered with products as the leading cause for the health problems. But they're not seeing that in Europe. In fact, Konstantin Vardavis, a European Respiratory Society Scientific Regulations Director within the EU, says this: "We have not seen anything like what we are seeing in the U.S. recently in Europe, to my knowledge as a scientist, and I'm pretty aware of the field." Clive Bates, former chief of the UK charity Action on Smoking and Health, said this: "You're terrifying people who are benefiting from vaping by not smoking." And I think that was the ultimate reason the e-cigarette products were created in the first place. So the question I have is, are youth being pushed to black market where they're finding THC pods and other counterfeit products? The lung illnesses that have been reported over the last several months are almost directly linked to the black market products, not the commercially produced products by the companies represented here today. So I think it's extremely important that we have an ongoing conversation about how your companies are working to minimize the number of black market products and what we in Congress can do. Instead of attacking you for developing an alternative to cigarette use, we ought to talk about how we can work together to help this industry, because it is an alternative to smoking. I personally believe that much more could be done to assist the Customs and Border Protection with identifying, and Immigration and Customs Enforcement, which seems to get the ire of the left, but they're customs enforcement officers that are actually enforcing our customs laws, okay? We need to help them to identify and intercept black market e-cigarettes. So my first question for all the witnesses is, can you speak to the relationships your companies have with CBP agents and how you're working alongside them to combat the influx of black market e-cigarettes? And I'll start with Mr. Constant.
Thank you. And first, our hearts go out to anyone who was hurt and impacted by the unfortunate Uvalde situation. And we were fully supportive when that investigation was going on, and we do not sell any THC products or products that contain vitamin E. But you're right to call out the amount of illicit products that exist in the United States market.
Is it difficult for the CBP officers to detect a counterfeit product versus a legitimate product if it's manufactured overseas?
Yeah, so we have a brand protection organization within our company who works with law enforcement, Border Patrol, other regulatory agencies on education, awareness, and helping combat this issue.
Mr. Oberlander.
First of all,
put your mic on, please.
Mr. Congressman, first of all, this is a very serious issue, and I understand your concern. When the Uvalde crisis broke out, we were very concerned about, very sorry for the pain actually the families, the victims actually were going through, and we immediately contacted the FDA and the CDC offering our help. We had, to my knowledge, no confirmed cases associated with our Vuse products, associated with the victims of the Uvalde crisis.
Can you move the microphone back up again, Mr.? It's okay.
I'm not used to
And in this, it's a time I'm running out here.
Okay. And then definitely we have worked with enforcement agencies in order to curb illicit trade, which is a serious problem for this category.
Yeah. I'm out of time, guys. Let me just reiterate. We need to work with Customs and Border Patrol, Immigration Customs Enforcement agencies. And this committee needs to work with them as well, even though we don't have necessarily jurisdiction, to figure out how we can stop the counterfeit products from coming into this country and address the real problem, and that is tampering with the legitimate products and the counterfeit products that people are using in this country, because apparently it's not a problem in Europe. With that, I yield back.